We're going to start here in PopDoc. So PopDoc is where our story begins when we're talking about migration. We connect to Dynamics GP. So in this case, we're using just that generic GP connection, which is connecting to your SQL database and has already cleaned some of the data into a format that's easier to understand. We're not using table names anymore. And what we're going to do is we're going to provide some custom lists called these migration lists. So they're going to be things like migration customers, vendors, items, and we'll rename the fields so that it's in the format of where it's going to go in Business Central. So when you're looking at the data, comparing your source data to where you want it to go in Business Central, you can see what doesn't look right and what does. So things like maybe the tax area codes, those don't match what I had set up in Business Central. So I know I'll either need to modify those inside of PopDoc potentially, or in Excel or someplace else before I import that data. I can scroll over, see I'm bringing in billing address information. I pulled in their email and phone from their address information. I have everything that I need in here. If I thought there was something missing, we still have that add column capability that you saw earlier. So you can quickly add anything else that's related to this customer that we didn't have in here by default. If I click this edit icon, we can jump into how this was actually created. What we're using is called a joined list. So I can join together multiple lists. So in this case, I join the customer to addresses so I get the customer detail along with whatever was set up as their default billing address and bring all that data in. I could potentially add another list. Again, doesn't need to be just GP. We could bring in anything here. I can go out and select something else. So if I were to grab customers again, doesn't make any sense. Define exactly which fields I wanted to join on from the two data sets, and then you could quickly add that as another list. Then I would be able to add any fields from that list that I just added. So if I want to add more for my customer addresses, I can select which of these fields I want to add in here and have access to as well. You can add other fields to your default. Out of the box, we're going to provide a bunch of defaults for all the fields that we feel are potentially going to be needed, and we'll provide a mapping for all of those fields, but it'll be very quick and easy for you to add additional detail if you want beyond what we provide in our out-of-the-box templates. So I have this data in PopDoc, but all PopDoc does is it queries data, it joins data, it gives you a visibility, the capability to quickly add different companies, to add columns, or one thing we haven't really talked about is you can add filters. So if you wanted to only upload customers from certain countries at one time, or you wanted to do more of a phased approach based on some other criteria, you can add any filters you want. Once you have the selection of data that you want to use, you can simply export it, and it'll just create a Excel file. I'm not going to export it because I already have one. And in here, I have my Excel file with all of that data. So as long as you're using Excel and you have the 64-bit version, you can have up to 1 million in some rows. So there's really not a hard limit on how much data you can manipulate at one time. So the process that we're taking with our migration strategy is you query all of the data, you pull out everything you need, you get it into Excel. Once it's in Excel, I can decide what data I want. I could remove any columns I didn't want. I could remove any rows I didn't want to move over to the other system. But the main thing here is I can clean my data. When you're migrating, you don't want to bring over dirty data. You don't want to bring over all of the problems of the old system. You want to take this as an opportunity to manipulate the data. So at the end of the day, we could do scripting, we could do complex integration scenarios with multi-data sources and creating calculations, doing all sorts of stuff, but anyone can work with Excel. So in Excel, I can identify some of my customers don't have payment terms codes. So now this is something I can give to the accountant and say, you need to clean up these records before we import them. And the accountant can go through, look in, identify these customers, can fix those records and say these should all be 30 days as well. and it's going to be a quick and easy thing for them to fix that data without them having to clean it all within GP or in SmartConnect or something like that. So once they've gone through, you've corrected all the data, you think it's good, it's ready to do an upload, you can jump over to SmartConnect, where we will have templates already available that are just going to pull based on those Excel files. If I go down to my destination, I don't want to spend too much time in SmartConnect, just as it is a means to get that data into Business Central and to have the reporting. We're not doing anything fancy here. We're deciding what our key is. So I said that the number field is going to be my key. I've told it to update if the record already exists. So basically I can use this same method multiple times. So if I keep importing and some records fail, I want to import them all again, or later I come back and decide I need to add another field to every record, I can update them, which is going to be a really nice way of doing it without having to delete 10,000, 100,000 records and then re-import all of them again. So I can quickly add any other field mappings that I want. As soon as you add fields to your Excel file, they'll show up over here, and then you can add those in here to your mapping. I'm only doing this to one company, so I have selected one company in here. I'm saying to import them into my company. We have the ability to import into multiple companies at the same time. So if there was something that needed to go into every company, like maybe an item or something like that, or you want to import your accounts into everyone so that you have all your GL accounts are the same in every company, you can do that. You can select this and it'll import it one record into each of these every time. If you exported that column way over here to the left with your company in it, then you could potentially use that to define a custom company structure. So if I went into SmartConnect, I could look at that company source column and say if the company is equal to a specific value directed into one company or the other. So this is going to give you that ability to allow, again, more of just an end user of the data to be able to manipulate the data and run these integrations that can be potentially very tricky to write if you were just doing it in SmartConnect and trying to use calculations and all of that, because they just clean the data in Excel, which they understand. Once I run the integration, if for some reason it were to fail, I'm not going to make you sit and wait for me to run it, so I already did. I ran my 111 records and 2 failed. So we have that normal SmartConnect capability where it tells me exactly what my error is. I can see United States, which I know is not a valid country code. So I'm just going to tell it to fix it right inside SmartConnect. So I'm going to correct those 2 records so that their country codes are US. And then I can just tell it to run all of this. And now I've successfully imported those last 2 records. Once you've imported all of your records, we can go back to PopDoc and we can validate that. So if you wanted to know if all of your records had successfully imported, you could use a compare list. So PopDoc has the capability to pull 2 data sets, 2 potentially very large data sets, and compare them to figure out if a record exists in both or does not. So if I were to create, I think this is CheckNinja from Business Central, but what it does is it's a very easy to set up connection. So I'm connected to GP data over here, my Business Central company that I'm importing to, and then I'm telling it these fields need to match. So the customer number in GP needs to match the customer number in Business Central, and then bringing in the name just so I can see. But I'm identifying those differences between the 2 databases. So if it finds any records that are not existing in both, I know that those are a problem and I need to go back and correct them. So we are going to take this full loop using PopDoc. We're going to use an initial PopDoc list to pull all of my data out of GP, get that data into Excel, clean the data any way that is needed in Excel in an easy to edit format, then I'll upload that data with SmartConnect. And you can upload the data as many times as you need to get it right within Business Central so that you're comfortable with it and you can move forward from there.